Brake fluid is a liquid that transmits the force from your brake pedal to the brakes. When you step on a brake pedal, the brakes generate huge amounts of temperatures and pressures quickly, especially when you're carrying merchandise in a vehicle with you or people, or when you're towing something. The brake fluid, that liquid that we're talking about, it's designed to transmit that force from your foot to the brakes very effectively, very efficiently, under the high pressures and temperatures without boiling. But there is a flip side to that story. Brake fluid absorbs water over time, even if you don't drive the car. This is especially true in high humid environments where it rains a lot or there's a lot of humidity. But what does all this mean, you may ask yourself? Well, let me tell you. We mentioned at the beginning of this video that when you step on a brake pedal, huge amounts of temperatures and pressures are generated. And when you absorb water into the brake fluid, water will boil and become a gas much sooner than a brake fluid will. And if you've ever boiled water over a stove, when it reaches boiling point, it creates a steam, and that's what that gas is. The same thing happens in the brake system. Now, you can compress a gas just like you would when you press on a balloon, but you cannot compress a liquid. And when you have water in your brake fluid, under hard braking, that water will transform into a gas because we said under hard braking condition, huge amounts of temperatures and pressures are generated. And if you have water in your brake fluid, your brakes can fail under hard braking condition when that water transforms from a liquid to a gas. And what you don't want is a sinking brake pedal under hard braking condition that gives you this sinking feeling on the inside of your guts that tells you the car may not stop when you need it to. And that's the point of this whole video, guys. Change your brake fluid in your car regularly, at least once every 2 years, because be safe. Life depends on it. Now, that being said, let's dive into some brake fluids and characteristics and the things you should be looking for when you buy a brake fluid. Now, there are a number of different brake fluids, and the most common ones that you see on the shelf when you go to your auto parts store or at the gas stations are your .3, your .4, and different variants of those two types of brake fluid. Seldom you will find the .5.1, and I personally have never seen .5. So let's explain what that means. Between .3, .4, and .5.1, the higher the number, the higher its ability to withstand or resist boiling temperatures as you apply the brakes and the temperatures and the pressures rise during hard braking conditions. Now, those brake fluids are compatible with each other. Say your car calls for a .3 or a .4, and you can find this information in the owner's manual, or you just go look it up on the internet by entering the kind of car that you drive. You can switch from a .3 to a .4 or from a .4 to a .5.1, but I don't recommend going backwards. Also, with the higher number of the dot type of brake fluid, it also means that the oil has a higher propensity or ability to absorb water, also known as the hydroscopic abilities. So that being said, the higher the dot number that your car requires, the sooner you have to change the brake fluid because of the reasons just explained. Now, on the other hand, a .5 I've never seen, but if you look it up, it has a completely different chemical characteristic, and its ability is that it doesn't absorb water, but oftentimes if your car calls for a .3 or a .4, you cannot switch to a .5 because it just isn't compatible with the system designed by the auto manufacturer. As always, consult your owner's manual that you should have with your car, or call the manufacturer or go to the dealer where you got the car, and they should be able to provide you the most reliable information on what kind of a brake fluid you should be using with your car. Now, here's, for example, a car that weighs over 4,800 pounds with nothing in it, meaning people, load, or not towing anything. And you know that when this thing is rolling on the freeway at speed limit and you have a couple of people in it and you're moving more than 5,000 pounds, this car will require some serious braking abilities and a serious brake fluid in order to withstand the pressures and temperature that the brake system would generate to stop such a car. As a matter of fact, because this car weighs so much, and it's a relatively fast and nimble and agile car, this car comes with a 4-piston caliper in the front and a 2-piston caliper in the back. Now, as you can imagine, because this thing has such a powerful braking system and it's so heavy, you can guess what kind of brake fluid this car requires. This car, for example, calls for a .4. Because it's so heavy and it can go so fast and it has such a huge brake system, obviously it requires a huge braking capabilities, and it needs an oil that can withstand those temperatures and pressures to stop such a vehicle. I hope this video was of help to you guys. And as always, give it a thumbs up if it helped you, and don't forget to subscribe. And I hope you learned something about the importance of changing regularly the brake fluid on your car, because oftentimes it goes forgotten. We think about the engine oil, transmission oil, coolant, but we overlook the importance of one of the critical fluids of a car, such as the brake fluid. So guys, change your brake fluid. It's very important. Life depends on it. And I will see you at the next video, guys. Take care.